Welcome guys, we are going to be going through some squat progressions today, what to look for, how to fix it, where to start, and things to go from there.
I'm Coach Megan, I'm going to be demonstrating.
And I'm Coach DJ, and I will also be demonstrating, I think.
Alright, the first thing we're going to go over is the bodyweight squat. This is where you should want to start before you go into any other movements or loading up weight. And you're going to want to assess yourself. So one of the first things you typically see when you ask someone to squat is something like this. With the knees shoot forward, the feet are off the ground, not really mobile in this movement. Come on up. What we want to really look for is keeping those heels back, hips moving first, sitting down, and coming up through. So ways to be able to check yourself for that is taking the video. So if you want to show us again one more time the good version. Now, really what you want to try and get is that flat back, hips back, knees not going in front of the toes too much, and our heels are on the ground. So this is what you want to look for, not that first one. We're going to go through some other things you want to look for as well. Alright, so one of the things you want to look for is if you are going knees forward first. If your knees are going forward first, this is the first basic movement that you want to reteach yourself and relearn. Where you really want to move is through the hips first. This way, all the strain goes into the largest muscle group. So again, you want to go through the hips first, not the knees first. So first we did a side view, now we're going to do a front view. Something to look at is your stance. So where a lot of people go is they usually tend to go a little bit too close together. There's a lot of controversy on where your feet should go. It's a little bit different per person. But watch what happens if her feet are actually too close together. She starts to compact her body and she's moving forward. Makes it hard for her to get good range of motion. Whereas if she goes a little more than hip width apart, she's able to actually sit her hips down between the legs, knees are coming out a little bit, and again, getting that full range of motion. So one of the other things to look for in the frontal view is what your knees are doing. So if you can't control your knees, one of the best ways to be able to work on that is the idea of splitting the floor. So it's a concept of trying to drive your knees out a little bit while keeping your feet flat on the floor. So when she's going down in the squat, she doesn't want to push her knees way out, but she also doesn't want them crumbling in. She needs them neutral, following the toes, trying to actually go along that second toe to be able to have her knees fall in line with that. All right, posture is a big thing in the squat, being able to keep your shoulder blades retracted. A lot of times when people are going down, they're doing too excessive in one way or another. Their shoulders are extremely rolled forward, or they're really trying to round it too back where they're really popping out their chest. Where the idea is you want to maintain that neutral spine. So we're going to show both variations in the squat and what to look for. So if her shoulders are rolled forward and she tries to squat down, she looks like a crumbling candle. Her upper back is rounded. She might be okay with the range of motion, but all that pressure is now put into her spine. Now, if she pulls her shoulder blades way too far back and really puffs her chest out, then you put all that pressure in the lumbar spine. And now, doing any type of squat, all the pressure is going to be here. What you really want to look for is that neutral spine. All right, so one of the best ways to do that is connect on the butt, the head, and the shoulders. And as she goes through her squat, there should be a slight lean forward of her body. There should be maintaining contact between all three of these points with a small bit of room in the back. Whereas if she arches her shoulders forward or backwards, she loses contact with these 3 points. So we're gonna kind of go back to how to fix it. So if your first version of the squat is where you are up on your toes, or your range of motion isn't so great that when you squat, you're stopping short, one of the first things to look for is posterior chain mobility. So hamstrings, glutes, and specifically your calves. One of the ways to be able to fix that, or even to be able to find it, what I like to do is just looking at your range of motion, how far you can pick up your toes. And for her, she's way better than I am. So for me, I use something like a heel lift. So one of the best ways to be able to get good range of motion with a squat, including body weight, is a heel lift. So what this does is once you put your heels onto the plates, it actually elevates your foot up and increases the amount of mobility in your body. So now when she goes to squat, her range of motion is much better. She's able to break that plane, her knees really aren't shooting forward, she's not on her toes, the weight is dispersed across her feet, and now she's able to have, again, that full range of motion with a neutral spine. All right, a couple things to look for in your hips is whether they are rotating forward or backwards too much. So this is what's called an anterior pelvic tilt. So what happens is that she's actually arching her back too much, or she's trying to like push her butt out. So when she tries to go and squat like this is where all that pressure gets put into her lumbar spine. So imagine you're trying to load yourself with weight, now all that pressure is coming here. The opposite is a posterior pelvic tilt, where you are actually rotating your hips underneath you and then your back is rounded the opposing way. So if you're going through a squat, either of these extremes, it's not very good for you. Or if you're going through a range of motion, I know it's gonna be tough to be able to do, and you drop down, go ahead and squat, and your hips start to rotate underneath you, that's also bad for your back. That's called the butt leg. Come on up. So ways to be able to fix that are being able to stretch your hip flexors, being able to stretch the posterior chain, because if one is tighter than the other, you're gonna have that rotation forward or backwards of the hips. All right, so ideally, this is what you wanna have your squat look like if you have all the components together before you can move on to the next progression. So Megan's gonna go through a couple normal bodyweight squats. And again, you wanna breathe in when you're going down, you wanna breathe out when you're coming up. Her hips are moving back, she's sitting back on her heels, and her back is flat, neutral spine. As she faces forward, being able, again, watch what your knees are doing. Feet are a little wider than hip width apart. Knees are tracking along with the toes instead of outside or inside. Neutral spine, she's not puffing her chest up. And again, good range of motion, getting the hip crest below the knee.